So Usyk's heavyweight run has gone from careful debut to total division control. And now he's teasing a 3-fight plan nobody saw coming. Crossover spectacle, dangerous young contenders, and unfinished business. The question is simple: legacy, money, or one last statement to the world? Let's talk about it.
So I'm going to start with a chronology. I'm going to start with a chronology of Usyk's heavyweight career. So we're not going to focus on his amateur days. We're not going to focus on his cruiserweight days where he was undisputed champion. We're going to focus on his heavyweight career. So the heavyweight context begins in 2019 against Chaz Witherspoon. And Usyk gets a 7-round TKO. It's a successful debut, but there are questions. It was a moderate boost with a moderate impact. So think of this. This fight mattered. Why did it matter? Because it launched this heavyweight chapter in this great boxing book. So that's why it mattered. And in October 2020, at the Wembley Arena, Usyk then went up against Derek Chisora. Derek Chisora is well known in the heavyweight boxing circles, and both fighters actually did a great job in marketing the fight. We got an insight into the humor of Usyk. Derek, to his credit, came to fight. He brought the pressure. He really did bring the pressure, the hooks. He brought some boxing intelligence and occasionally even a southpaw stance, which was rather surprising. I would say that at times this was a competitive fight. This was one of the best versions of Derek Chisora that I'd ever seen. And in that sense, Usyk had very strong opposition. This, I would say, was a solid win. It was a solid win in heavyweight boxing circles. So with that being said, think of this. Figuratively speaking, the car of Usyk is moving, and it's moving in the right direction. So as I've stated, Usyk was getting momentum. He's had a few victories. He's fought and beaten Derek Chisora. And remember, he brings that cruiserweight champion credibility, which is a very high credibility. He was a great cruiserweight champion. So in September 2021, I believe, came the big test. This is when the big test came, and that was the test against Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is a massive brand. He is someone that's globally recognizable, but he's a two-time champion. And this is where effectively Usyk becomes a globally recognized king in beating Joshua in a stadium of 67,000 fans. In this event, Usyk wins the WBA, the IBF and the WBO, and I believe the IBO belts. And Usyk took AJ's punches, and he had superior condition. It's important to recognize that Usyk has superior condition over all his fighters, as, you know, Anthony Joshua is a very well-conditioned athlete. And in the 12th round, the final round, Usyk actually accelerates the pace, which is remarkable. And he actually nearly stops AJ in that final round. And he hurts AJ in round 3. And let's be honest, Anthony Joshua showed so much character to last in that final round. And, you know, he is a brave champion. This fight had a massive popularity boost. And Usyk became part of the British boxing algorithm. Matter of fact, he actually became part of the global boxing algorithm because Anthony Joshua is just such a huge star. Think of this. Usyk becomes dominant in the heavyweight space, becoming a king in the boxing context with this victory. Now in August 2022 came the rematch with Anthony Joshua. And the cultural reference here was significant. The cultural and political reference was significant. I'm not going to get specific, but this was a Usyk that was fighting for his country. Anthony Joshua, he made some adjustments. He made some changes. He brought a new trainer and ultimately a better version of himself. But Usyk matched the gear. He matched the new gear that Anthony Joshua brought, and he surpassed it. Usyk was not just a clever technician, he was resilient, full of heart, and full of passion. Now, which rounds were significant? I would say rounds 9, 10, and 11. They were the significant rounds because AJ made a breakthrough. I believe it was in round 9. It looked like he made a breakthrough with the body shots and the left hook to the head. But Usyk in round 10 and in round 11 then just went to another level. Now this fight, it had huge visibility. It had worldwide visibility. And the popularity boost, again, was very significant. It was very, very high. In a sense, the rematch, it deepened Usyk's reputation in the heavyweight space. Think of this. This was another significant event on the CV of Usyk. And in the boxing jungle, Usyk now has an extremely significant monopoly. So on August 26, 2023, Usyk fights Daniel Dubois. Now, Daniel Dubois was young. He had significant power, and he was a great talent. And at one point, Dubois was a huge prospect. However, he suffered a loss to Joe Joyce. And the nature of that loss, or the context of that loss, was problematic. He was unable to deal with Joe Joyce's jab. So when the fight came, clearly Usyk was the clear favorite. There was, however, a controversial moment in round 5. Let me explain. In round 5, Dubois throws a punch that was intended to the body. But the referee ruled that this was a low blow. This meant that Usyk was given time to recover. Some felt that this was a legitimate punch above the waist, and therefore, or it was a legitimate punch that wasn't low, and therefore this should have been counted as a legitimate knockout. This leaves the obvious question, was the punch low? And that depends on who you ask. Now, after that moment, Usyk clearly dominated the fight. He respectively broke Daniel Dubois down. Clearly, Daniel Dubois at that time didn't have the boxing IQ to be able to deal with a superior technician. The fight was mixed, but meaningful. The controversy of round 5 made the fight memorable. Think of this. There was a moment of vulnerability, but despite that vulnerability, Usyk still showed absolute dominance. Again, Usyk is a cerebral champion that is solving all the puzzles. So on May the 18th, 2024, Usyk fights Tyson Fury. And Usyk wins a decision. And there was cultural relevance because this was a defining heavyweight achievement in his career. It was a defining heavyweight achievement. For example, it was the first undisputed fight in 25 years. The last one was Evander Holyfield versus Lennox Lewis, both elite champions. And it was a close and brutal fight. And the 9th round was a huge, massive moment for Usyk. But let's not get it twisted. Tyson Fury had moments. He had moments of brilliance. And to reference that, look at round 5 and 6. Because Tyson Fury started to show dominance in those rounds. And this fight had enormous popularity. It had enormous popularity historically. This was significant. And you could say the following. You could say that this fight, within the heavyweight context, was the ultimate challenge. It was the ultimate challenge because when you look at Tyson Fury, who is Tyson Fury? It's someone with high boxing IQ. It's someone with good speed. It's someone who has a reach advantage. It's someone who has a weight advantage. Tyson Fury had lots of different advantages and he had elite credibility. Wins over Klitschko, the trilogy with Wilder. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the ultimate test. High boxing IQ versus high boxing IQ. Begging the question, who has the highest boxing IQ? But Usyk prevailed. Despite the disadvantages, Usyk prevailed in a competitive and brutal fight. It was brutal. It was art. It was passion. It was masterful. Think of this. Usyk showed he is the ultimate lion in the jungle, and at this point, no other lion could compete. So in December 21st, 2024, we had the rematch with Tyson Fury. This was another great victory. And the rematch, to give it its appropriate context, it was competitive, but less grueling. It was competitive, but less grueling. Tyson Fury this time paced himself more, tried to control the distance, and land some clever counters. By Tyson Fury, I would say this was an intelligent performance, but it was a performance that took less risks. I feel that Tyson Fury's focus was trying to minimize mistakes over taking risks, and this, of course, is an intelligent approach. However, Usyk, of course, made adjustments. First, he reduced getting hit by those uppercuts, which was so effective in the first fight. He had successful bodywork, successful feints, and changed gears when necessary. And another thing, and I think this is crucial, Usyk took more risks. Usyk took more risks. Now, the popularity boost of this fight was very high, but this fight was less explosive than the first fight. And that's important to recognize. This fight was a good fight. It was competitive, but it did not have the drama of the 9th round. It didn't have that type of drama. But like I said, it was a competitive fight, but Tyson Fury was more measured. He was trying to put on an educated performance as opposed to taking Usyk's soul, which I felt like in the first fight, in rounds 5 and 6, he was really putting on the pressure. And this was a different type of performance by Tyson Fury. To put it another way, Tyson Fury presented a different type of boxing puzzle. Think of this. Usyk had beaten a great champion in Tyson Fury twice. And this solidified his greatness. It solidified his greatness, illustrating that Usyk's boxing IQ was of epic proportions. So in July the 19th, 2025, came the rematch with Daniel Dubois. I really hope I'm getting these dates right. Anyway, it's important to realize the context. Daniel Dubois had reinvented himself as a boxer. He had a sequence of victories, and he had that sensational, absolutely sensational 5th round knockout performance against Anthony Joshua. So this was a different Daniel Dubois. And this was at Wembley Stadium. And it felt at the time that this closed the chapter of their fight. This performance just closed the chapter, because we knew it was a different Daniel Dubois, but it also felt like it was a different Usyk. Let me explain. The counter-punching from Usyk, the counter-punching was absolutely impeccable in this fight. And Usyk, from my perspective, had an identity change. He had an identity change. He was not just the intelligent southpaw with clever counters and good feints. He was a dominant hard puncher, because it felt, watching the fight, that Usyk was a power puncher here. This was mastery mixed with brutality. I repeat, this was mastery mixed with brutality. There was a viciousness to Usyk, a viciousness that I hadn't seen before. And I remember watching this fight when he, scored the knockout win. Was it stopped or was it a knockout? I can't remember. But I remember watching the fight thinking that this may be the last time that we see Usyk, that he may close the curtains on this beautiful career, this elite champion. Think of this. This fight had a very high popularity boost. No controversy, no ambiguity, just a clean finish, a vicious finish. So now we've defined the chronology of Usyk. Now let's talk about the 3-fight plan. So before we talk about the 3-fight plan, let's talk about the plan before the 3-fight plan. And that plan included Deontay Wilder, the former world champion and feared puncher. Some consider him the hardest puncher of all time. Wilder had significant popularity. But there was an issue. He had no current momentum. And this fight ultimately fell through. Here's an important question. Why did this fight fall through? Think of this. Not all money is good money. And decisions and developments, they can change. But why did this negotiation fall through? Was it the cash? Was it the percentage split? Was it the marketing? Or did it become less viable? Were the investors not willing to put up enough money for this type of fight? Now, Deontay Wilder, he has credibility, but that credibility, you could argue, is past tense, and I say that with respect. But Wilder still had the danger of the right hand. So, he has that significant power. He can knock out anyone. But since this time, that plan has been derailed, and currently, that chapter is closed. So now we have the 3-fight plan, and the 3-fight plan consists of Rico, Wardley, Dubois, or should I say Wardley or Dubois, and Tyson Fury. So it's Rico, Wardley or Dubois, and Tyson Fury. Let's start with Rico. So Rico is an athlete from the kickboxing universe. He's an athlete from the kickboxing universe. Now, kickboxing is a great sport, and Rico is at the top of that mountain. He's the top of that mountain. For example, he held the glory title for 4,220 days. So he has elite credibility in that field. There's no doubt about that. And I actually, from a personal perspective, went through a short phase when I was watching a lot of kickboxing, and I was actually watching a lot of Rico. He's a very, very entertaining fighter. And kickboxing is an entertaining sport. If you look at the structure of kickboxing in terms of the rounds, with how many rounds, it's appealing because it's fast-paced and it's full of action. And I would say this, the potential of this fight, potentially it's a massive cultural event. Think of this reference. Think of the Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. That was a crossover fight that did exceptionally well. So the crossover fights, they can appeal to the public. And this fight for Usyk has a massive risk. If he loses a lot. But there's also a huge economic potential. And this is a huge opportunity, an absolute huge opportunity for Rico. Not just huge financial security, but a huge opportunity to shock the world. Rico is an exciting fighter. He is an exciting fighter. And I think this could be a very exciting fight. Think of this. Rico is dominant, but he's dominant in another jungle. But this is the boxing jungle. To speak figuratively, a lion is less effective without no teeth. Let me give you that specific context. How powerful is Rico without the ability to use his kicks? So here is some interesting context to the Rico fight. Usyk will likely take more risks. And if that premise is true, this means that Rico will have more opportunities to attack. And that can create the ingredients for a very exciting fight. So here's a question. Does this fight move the needle? Does it capture the imagination? Does it move the crowd? Does it make economic impact? Does it make cultural impact? Now, when Conor fought Floyd Mayweather, which was a crossover fight, it was a huge event. It was scrutinized. It was scrutinized mainly by the boxing purists, but it was an entertaining build-up, and ultimately I think it was a good fight. The media were given massive amounts of content, and the general fan, the boxing fan, and the MMA fans, they were all engaged. There were loads of discussions. So from this perspective, I think the Rico fight makes sense because the casual fan will be engaged and also the kickboxing community will be engaged. And the only issue with this fight is, like I said, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, they were great talkers. They were great at marketing. I don't know if Rico and Usyk, they're great fighters, but they're not great marketers. So that's the only barrier I see here. Of course, there are some other questions with regards to whether this fight can work. Is it massive just regionally? Is it global? And can this fight be competitive? if the premise is true that Usyk takes more risks, then there's the potential that this fight can have very competitive moments and be a very entertaining fight. Think of this. Rico has great credibility. He has great credibility. He has contributed so much to the kickboxing galaxy. He has contributed so much to the kickboxing universe. And I'm glad that he is receiving this opportunity. So let's look at the second fight, which is either Fabio Wardley or Daniel Dubois. Let's assume for this moment that it's the Fabio Wardley option and that Fabio Wardley has a victory over Daniel Dubois. And that's a massive assumption because that, you could argue, is a 50-50 fight. Now, I would say that the Fabio Wardley fight carries significant risk. Again, this fight probably won't have great marketing, but it might be a great fight. Because when we look at Wardley, you ask the question, who is Fabio Wardley? Well, essentially, Fabio Wardley is a power puncher, but he has heart and technique. And that will always carry a significant threat. If he was just a power puncher, that's not enough. But when you blend heart, technique with power, that's a considerable threat. But let's not forget that Usyk is a master at neutralizing the threat. They both objectively bring an undefeated psychology. But objectively speaking, Usyk brings the better resume. That doesn't mean that Fabio's resume is bad, it's just that Usyk brings the better one. But think of this, Wardley does not know how to lose, which will mean that he will probably roll the dice. And this fight has huge potential in terms of being entertaining, in terms of being a great contest. And of course, you have to put Usyk as the favorite, but Wardley is a live underdog. Now let's create another outcome where Daniel Dubois beats Fabio Wardley. Again, it's a 50-50 fight, and at the time of writing, we don't know what's going to happen. Now, if Daniel Dubois beats Fabio Wardley, the problem becomes evident that we have a marketing issue with this fight, because the question is, can you convince the people, can you convince the boxing fans and the casual fans that Dubois has a chance in the trilogy? I'm not sure if you can. Now, even if Dubois destroys Fabio Wardley, and even if he destroys Fabio Wardley, I don't think people will get excited for this trilogy. And I think selling this trilogy as a fight that's going to be competitive, I think that would be fairly problematic, even though the fight could be a great fight. And the Tyson Fury trilogy that's been suggested, that could have a similar problem. Now remember, Tyson Fury was the ultimate test, as I stated earlier, but that context is past tense in the mind of the casual fans and even in the mind of the boxing fans. That fight does not have the curiosity factor that it had in the previous two fights. However, interestingly, despite this context, this could be a great fight. Tyson Fury, let's not forget, has nothing to lose this time, but everything to gain. This could create the psychology of risk-taking. This means it might be a better fight, even if it's the same outcome. Now, I think there's a reasonable question here, and that reasonable question is, are there better fights? And I think certain boxing fans will say, yes, there are better fights. And most will point to two boxers, which is Moses Atama and Ajak Kabayel, and they both carry different problems for Usyk. Now these two, Kabayel and Moses Atama, they present a considerable challenge, and they are both students of the boxing game. Moses Atama, some may argue, is too young, but he has speed, power, footwork, and is a great talent. Matter of fact, he's an exceptional talent. Now Kabayel at this point is more seasoned, has boxing intellect, and can adapt. Now Kabayel's ability of adaptation, that may provide the bigger risk today, but that changes as Moses Atama matures and evolves with his growing boxing experience. Now these fights against Moses Atama and Kabayel, they may be the better fights for the boxing purist, but they might not be the better fight for the casual fan. Unfortunately, if the 3-fight plan is followed, These two warriors have been left out of the Usyk equation. They've been left out of the Usyk equation. Remember, Usyk is the man and he's made a boss move on deciding his future. Think of this. Every fight has variables: risk, reward, economic benefits, cultural impact, and the variables of camp and different psychologies of boxers. In a sense, boxing is so simple, but complicated at the same time. And we may be approaching the final chapter. So with that, I say this: let's appreciate this moment. Let's enjoy the mastery, enjoy the journey, because this man, Usyk, deserves his flowers as an elite fighter. So that's the end of the video. Now I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. That means I'm interested in your comments, I'm interested in your questions, and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, all you have to do is like and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content like this, all you have to do is click here or click here. As always, thanks for your time. It is much appreciated. Peace.